Alright, how's everybody doing? This is the Comic Samurai. I want to welcome you to my next video, and tonight we're going to be looking at my favorite comic book covers that feature color in one way or another. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First up, we got this Excalibur #1, and I always like to feature the very first comic book that comes to mind when I think of a topic. And this is the one that I thought of first when I think of color. They were able to capture that essence of the London foggy night in the background with that green, unlike any other cover I had ever seen. I absolutely love the tone that they were able to present, all because of the color on this one. I just love that background green there. Next up, we got the Invisibles #17, and I wanted to feature this one as a comic book that displayed a ton of color, and it worked. They were able to do the separations right and lay the color down in a way that was still appealing to the eye. Now, I showed that one because they don't always succeed. This one, Gambit and the Externals #3, is one where I didn't think they succeeded with a really colorful comic cover. Look at how they tried to mix all those colors together there, and it just kind of mixes in your eye to a brown. They hadn't perfected the colorization of the digital computer coloring yet. This was some early attempts at it, and I just don't think it worked as well as that other one. Next up, we got Moon Knight #60, and I wanted to feature this one to illustrate that you can have an amazing, dynamic, exciting cover without any color at all. And this is my favorite example of a black and white comic cover. Next up, we got Captain America #241, and I'm going to feature my favorite comic book covers of every color, and we're starting off with white. This beautiful Frank Miller image there just exemplifies those two heroes there. You've got the vigilante of the Punisher up against Captain America, the symbol of Americanism, liberty, good, all things fair and just in the world. And it's reflected in the color in their costumes. Look at how bright and bold Captain America's colors are with the red, white, and blue, contrasted against the Punisher's black and white, stark, no compromising color there, and his blue is dark and gritty. And he's holding the gun at Captain America. I love this white cover. Next up, we got Classic X-Men #1, and this will always be, more than likely, my favorite white comic book cover. That other one was the runner-up, but this is how it's done. White that isolates an image there, and all of these X-Men drawn in the way that they should be. I think Art Adams captured an image here that will go down in history. It won the Comic Bowl. It's the very first champion that ever got the Steranko Trophy. Next up, we got Moon Knight #24, and this was my favorite red cover, done by Bill Sienkiewicz. I'm not always his fan, but I love the image that he did here, especially that contrasting like stained glass image in the background there. The colors on that window that define the shape of that female form there. I like how he used implied line on her dress there. He didn't actually draw the line, but your eye and your mind completes that image there. Love that red, beautiful tone and image on that cover. Next up, we got Judge Dredd #1, and this is my favorite orange color comic cover. I love this one. They introduced Judge Dredd there. He is the law. All that type. I love when they tie in typography into an image there, but this one, it's beautiful. It really does capture the tone that is going to be this Judge Dredd series and introduced it to the American audience. Next up, we got Detective Comics #575. I wanted to show this series because there was 4 issues of this Batman Year 2 that all kind of had a similar theme. They all had kind of this orange background there, and it tied them together. You knew that you were looking at a Year 2 comic book because of the background there. And they used to use like hints and cues on the cover so that you knew you were getting part of a larger series there. Now, Todd McFarlane took over on that part 2, and he finished it up on the 3rd and 4th issues that you'll see here. But they all had that beautiful orange background there, contrasted against Batman's blue costume and that black and yellow trade dress there. I really think this succeeded like they haven't done recently. This is part 4 here, the final one. This is issue number 578, and I think that this is one of the most dynamic Todd McFarlane covers that was ever been drawn. I love that image there, and it's only complemented by that orange reddish background there. Next up, we got the Avengers #100. Now, this is my favorite yellow comic book cover. This one was done by Barry Windsor Smith here, and I like this. It was really before he got into his Raphael period, where everything had these eyelashes, and it was just really a different style. But this one, he still had that kind of Conan influence that he used, but that yellow sets it off, and this comic features every Avenger that had ever been a member before, and it's a beautiful cover there. Next up, we got the Uncanny X-Men number 381, and this cover gives Barry Windsor Smith a run for his money. This is a little bit more of a use of yellow there, and I love the trail of the red visor, the optic blast of Cyclops. When he's turning his head, he leaves that trail of light, and I just thought that is so clever. What a beautiful use of cover on that comic cover. Next up, we got Green Lantern number 49, and there's a lot of green images, the Hulk and things like this. But that image of Hal Jordan holding all of those rings illuminated from below, I love when they get a lighting tone in with the comic cover that kind of sets the mood also. And this one, that green sickly, like you know that he's a little bit crazy there. The look on his face, it just is complemented by those colors. Next up, we got Astonishing X-Men number 2, and this is my favorite blue cover. Something about that light blue that gets darker on the top there, and it illuminates the two figures there, and Emma Frost covering Scott Summers' eyes, but his optic blast is kind of burning through. This has so many images there. She's kind of scowling like she's not looking that happy, and she's blinding Scott, but he kind of sees through her blinds. There's so much going on, and it's only added to because of the color on that one. Next up, we got the Defenders, number 96, and this is a Michael Golden image here. And he really did capture a beautiful Ghost Rider image. Look at the lighting there, illuminating that evil figure standing tall in the background there, but it's Ghost Rider. All that purple, it draws your eye in. I love sometimes when they use the complementary colors of purple and yellow, but it has to be done right. It can be the worst of times or the best of times, and this one is amazing. Love that one. Next up, we got Fantastic Four number 50. Now, this is one of the first Silver Ages that I ever got, and it's got a beautiful image on the cover. I always remember thinking how dynamic it was. I loved Kirby's stuff at this time, but everybody dogs on it because of that brown background there, and whenever I see a bad brown cover that the brown just dominates, I say it suffers from Fantastic Four number 50 syndrome. But I don't think this is a terrible cover at all. I kind of like it. And I wanted to illustrate that you can get away with beautiful brown backgrounds like this Justice League of America number 74, done by Neil Adams. You got the Silver Age and Golden Age Superman battling on the cover there, and this brown background just complements it so well. It draws your eye to all those colorful images of the Justice Society and the Justice League cheering on those two heroes, battling it out, brown background, beautiful cover there. Next up, we got Batman number 417. Now this one was part of that 10 Nights of the Beast storyline. And I wanted to show another example of a beautiful brown background. Look at how the brown illuminated on those buildings there. But the yellow light spreading up there, I think that Michael Zeck captured an image here that was so dynamic, even with the brown, and maybe because of the brown, the coloring on this one is what makes it an A+ in my book. I love that cover. Love, love, love it. Next up, we got Fantastic Four number 7, and I wanted to say one more example of brown making a cover work. Wolverine being reintroduced in that Heroes Reborn timeline here. This is a Brett Booth cover, but the coloring on it, I love Wolverine when this costume is done right. That yellow starburst behind him, the yellow fading into the orange, the brown, the red there, with the thing complementing. Everything works on this one. It's one of my favorite colored comics out there. Next up, we got Daredevil number 174. Now, this is my favorite grayish cover there. I just wanted to show it because the way that they use the gray in this midground here, it defines the midground. And it's a color cue. You've got green and gray defining the background, this gray stripe with the Gladiator in the midground, with Daredevil and Elektra, and then you've got these swords in the foreground there. And that works because it's offset by the color of the purple at the bottom there. But this gray defining the midground is why I wanted to show that one. Next up, we got Marvel Team Up number 117. And this is another gray comic book cover that I just had to show. I love this one. The foreshortening of Wolverine's leg coming at you, Spider-Man's hand. But look at that wash of the gray in the background there with that simple web image. They just don't do that often enough anymore. Use this gray tone here. And I love how it's almost black at the top, almost white at the bottom, and that smooth gradient in the middle there. What a beautiful gray image that one is. Next up, we got The Crow number 1. And this is my all-time favorite black cover here. Love this one. The colors in his eyes say so much about the image also. That blue, how one is subtly lighter than the other, and that scar that runs across his nose. There's a lot going on here, but that black It's just an epic cover there. It's my favorite. All right, next up we got Ghost Rider number 15, and I wanted to show this one because it's got some of that glow-in-the-dark ink on it, of course, and you can always kind of see it. There's something milky about it, or you can just sense that glow-in-the-dark ink there, and this one's beautiful. I'll go ahead and put an image up now of the glow-in-the-dark image. It's my favorite gimmick cover there, and it deserves all the accolades that it gets. I love this cover, and glow-in-the-dark, as far as it goes, this is my favorite green glow-in-the-dark cover. All right, next up we got Master Comics number 68, and I wanted to show this one as an example of coloring done in the Golden Age. This is how the Golden Age color used to look on those kind of oversized golden covers, but this is how they applied it at that time. It's a pretty typical example. Next up we got Justice League of America number 29, and this is a pretty typical example of Silver Age coloring. I just wanted to show how coloring was done in all the different ages of comic books here in this one. You can see how the colors are applied pretty flat, a lot like the Golden Age. Some of the materials had changed, the paper stock and things like that, but the Silver Age kind of continued the style that they used in the Golden Age. Next up is Justice League of America number 46. And this one, they did start to try different things, though. The purple on this one, they wanted it to grab your eye. They wanted it to be exciting. They wanted it to really jump off of the shelves, and they started trying things like that in the Silver Age. And this is a beautiful example of a purple comic cover from the Silver Age. Next up, we got the Defenders number 10. We're moving into the Bronze Age now, and this one just exemplifies coloring of that time. I love it. A perfectly balanced colored comic book. Look at how the green of the Hulk, purple pants, balance off the red, yellow, and blue of Thor's costume there. Even the trade dress uses bright colors. Love this one. There is a bit of brown on the ground, but I don't mind it. This is a perfectly colored comic book. Next up, we got Secret Wars number 1, and now we're moving into the Copper Age, and this is a pretty good example of the coloring that was typical of that era. Love this one. It's shown all the time. It was on posters, and it just sums up that time period of comic books. Next up, we got Ghost Rider number 1, and this is how they colored things in the 1990s. They were moving from the 80s Copper Age stuff into the Plastic Age of the 90s, and this one just sums that up. You could tell it was something different. When you saw this one on the shelves, you're like, oh, this is something different. I gotta see what's going on inside of that comic book. Next up, we got Lobo number 1. Now, this one, they said, let's get some rock and roll out there. Let's see what we can do with color. Look at how they did the red in his eye there. Simon Bisley, this painted image of Lobo, the main man there, biting his lip, and a little bit of blood. Oh, this is such a rock and roll cover. And if that one's rock and roll, then this next one, Slash number 1, is heavy metal. Look at how they used that color there. They came at you saying, this is how rock and roll punk, heavy metal's gonna be. Those colors there with the little bit of flash of the red foil there, but they didn't need it. They proved that with this issue number 2. They said, you want heavy metal? We'll give it to you in spades. Look at this one, that bright yellow, that red hair, the teal trade dress there. I love this image, and it really did sum up that hardcore 1990s color that I love. Next up, we got Detective Comics number 400. Now, this one is my favorite comic book mood. Something about how they colored in this era of Neil Adams' art just, it captured that mood, that essence, that flavor, unlike any other time. I love that. It's haunting. And that one gets a lot of excitement. But this number 402, I think, deserves a little more attention. This one captures a mood better than any other cover. Look at how the light from that lantern illuminates Batman. It's separate from this Man-Bat being backlit by the moon there. But this, again, that foggy green in the background, it's the closest comic to that Excalibur number 1 that I started off with for capturing the mood of a foggy, spooky night. Next up, we got Gunwitch number 1, and I wanted to show this one as an example of capturing the essence of a holiday. These colors speak to me of Halloween better than any other, and it's also complemented by the image. You got all these ghouls here, but something about that green in the trade dress, that yellow pregnant moon, and that orange background just screams Halloween. Next up, we got Machine Man number 1, and this one was done by Barry Windsor Smith. And I'm going to do a whole video dedicated to him because he colors comics unlike any other artist. I love this one. This is a 4-issue limited series, and I wanted to show you how even the colors of this one make a progression of this Machine Man from a more machine-like coloring scheme to a down-to-earth, more humanistic one. This is issue number 2 here, and you can see how he's getting to be a little more human like, and next issue number 3 continues that. It's building a more human-like face here, moving away from a cyborg there, but look at that wash of color in the background. Barry Windsor Smith could do that unlike anybody else. He knew what colors complemented each other, and it finished up in this issue number 4 there. He's got the rainbow in the background there, this almost human-like face there in the visage there. White is utilized great. Barry Windsor Smith, he colors unlike anybody else. And this issue number 205 of the X-Men illustrates that also. Now this one is an example of Barry Windsor Smith's coloring that I did not care for. He's great and he's always exciting to look at, and I can say that about this one. It's fun to look at, but it doesn't appeal to my eye. Did not like the pink on that cover there. Next up we got Daredevil number 217, and this is the last Barry Windsor Smith I'll tease you with here. But look at how he colored it. Unlike most colored comic books, all the windows are individually colored, and the highlights off of everything. Look at how the lighting on the edges of a figure illuminate things, and it just gives it more depth and feel and volume to it. This one is a beautifully colored Barry Windsor Smith cover. Next up we got The Invisibles number 1, and I like how they use fluorescence in a cover sometimes. This is an example of using fluorescent ink that works. Pink, orange, blue. It all comes together in a very cool image that draws your eye in. Next up we got X-Force number 4. Now this one is known for strange coloring. It's like they took a color palette, applied it to the comic book, and then shifted everything one color place. It really did just take a weird twist in it. I really encourage everybody to look at this comic book just because of the colors. It really was colored unlike any other comic I'd seen, and it really complements that crazy wonky Liefeld art very well. Next up we got Blackest Night number 6, and I wanted to show this one just because of the spectrum of color. You remove from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, ultraviolet, everything in there. It got the whole spectrum of color on this beautiful one, and it's reflected in the story. All these different rings have different powers and different colors, and I just liked how it's reflected in that cover. Next up we got Savage Dragon number 1. Now when this one came out, it had multiple covers and multiple different things, and the only difference in it, can you see it? Look at how these are almost identical covers except for the color in the trade dress. This one has green, this one has yellow, and there's a blue one and a pink one. But I wanted to show this blue one here because these were all the direct sales ones. But they did come out with a newsstand version of that one too, and it had a UPC symbol there. And I want to know if all of the UPCs were the blue edition there. So if you have a copy with the UPC, let me know if yours is a blue one too. Mine doesn't have a poster in it either, the UPC. So let me know if yours has a poster. Next up we got Brain Fantasy number 2. And I had to show this one as an example of a poorly colored comic book. Now, I've seen other examples of this where this is a very clear image, but mine, something about the alignment of the colors. During the printing process, the colors don't line up, and it kind of gives you a sickly feel, and I thought it was on purpose. I was like, oh man, they colored it strange. It makes you kind of nauseous, and it feels like you're in a brain fantasy, but not all of them are colored like that. Maybe I got lucky. Next up, we got the Uncanny X-Men number 122, and this is my second example of a miscolored comic book. Do you see here at the type at the bottom there, how the orange was supposed to be applied even in this little area there, but it's not, it's yellow? I thought, oh, it was a misprint, that stinks, but a lot of them I've found are colored this way. It was a very common error in the printing process, and I love that. It kind of increases the tension there, like it's kind of getting mushed in the middle of that yellow, just like Colossus is. I love that it mirrors what's happening in the image. Next up, we got Daredevil number 196, and I think this is one of the most underrated comic books ever. I think it's the first time that Wolverine and Daredevil met. Nobody talks about it. But what is the main turnoff for me in this is a little bit of a coloring error. Look at how in the top of Wolverine's hand there, he's supposed to have his hand upside down, and this thumb is supposed to be colored brown. But they colored it green like it's part of his shirt there. I don't think that the colorist understood the image on this one, and therefore he miscolored this one. It's always bothered me, and it always catches my eye there because of the miscoloring on that one. Next up, we've got Batman number 423, and this is probably the most famous miscolored comic book. Even Todd McFarlane himself, the artist, talks about this one. He says that this circle, this moon in the background there, should have continued, and you can see that the black line is drawn right there, but they didn't color this little section yellow, and I thought that's interesting, but I've heard another miscoloring pointed out here. You see this area right next to his face is colored white. they didn't color that little bit of the moon yellow either. So you've got this little white area there and this red area that both should have been yellow. And I love this cover because of those two mistakes. Next up, we got the Incredible Hulk Annual 15. Now, to look at this, you wouldn't see any errors on the cover of the coloring. But if you read it inside, it's not the green Hulk that's fighting the abomination. It's the gray Hulk. And he's colored gray in the thumbnail there. But if you open it up, he's gray through the whole story. But it's a green Hulk on the cover. And I just think that the colorist didn't realize what version of the Hulk was going to be fighting the abomination there. I realize that they're fighting over kind of a gamma irradiated pool or something. And it's giving off a green light, perhaps. But they should have colored that Hulk gray. I wanted to see Mr. Fix-It on the cover there, fighting the abomination. Next up, we got Classic X-Men number 30. And I wanted to show this one as an example of a color that has different printing application of the color. Look at this version of it, how differently it's colored than that other one there. It really is applied just very differently. And I know that this one is not color faded. It was on the rack like that. And it's just funny that the same comic book can just be colored so differently dependent on where in the run it was printed. Another example of that is that What If number 7, one of my all-time favorite covers done by Rob Liefeld of Wolverine. I love this one. The lighting on it, it's beautiful, but look at how different this color scheme is when the ink was applied different there. His hair is a different color there, his chest, everything. It's the colors really do speak differently in these two versions of that comic book. I love it. And this one, again, is not sun faded. It was just at a different time in the print run. Next up, we got the Incredible Hulk number 229. And this was the very first comic book that got me excited about comics in general. And it was all because of the colors of it. I saw this image of Doc Samson there with his red shirt, the yellow lightning bolt, the blue pants, his green hair there, fighting the Green Hulk with his purple pants. I just thought, this is a comic book that I have got to open up and look at the pictures. I couldn't even read yet when I saw this for the first time, but I thought those pictures were so exciting and visually stimulating that it got me into comic books. This one hooked me because of the color. Next up, we got the Fantastic Four number 240, and I think this is one of the most beautifully colored comic books that has ever been printed. I love it. I think it's so underrated. Not only did John Byrne have to come up with all of that architecture and draw it, but it had to be colored too. And each one of those mythical buildings has got color unlike anything else. I love the image of the Inhumans there, and although you're seeing everybody's back, those colors keep it interesting enough to keep your attention held. Next up, we got American Flag number 15, and I just had to show this one as another beautiful example of how color should be done. And this Howard Chaykin image is amazing. I love it. That sunset in the background, it would just be kind of an average cover, if not for the amazing colors that they applied to that image. Next up, we got Web of Spider-Man number 1. Now, this Charles Vess image was painted cover, and I love that. Sometimes it doesn't work for me, but how they applied the blues, the light blues in that black costume of Spider-Man, that fog, those clouds, the moon, pregnant there, everything kind of a pastel light, captures a mood unlike most comic book covers of that time. Next up, we got V for Vendetta number 8, and I love this David Lloyd image here. Look at how the blue in the foreground on those dominoes, that lighting is just ghostly haunting, and in the background, all those great colors of those horses on the carousel there. Something about this one, it's so dreamlike. I've never seen coloring that captures the essence of a dream like this one. I thought I couldn't wait to see the movie, how they captured this scene, and they really dropped the ball. It was one of the few scenes that they left out of the movie, and I think they really missed an opportunity because the lighting on this one, they could have just translated it to film very well, in my opinion, and they dropped the ball. Next up, we got Watchmen number 1. And I had to point this one out because the colors on this one turned me off when I saw it. When this one came out in '86, I remember seeing it on the shelves and not getting it. I just thought, what a boring image of this red, like jelly stuff, and this button there. What does that mean? The smiley face. It just didn't register anything to me. However, it has become an icon, and after reading the story and understanding it, I fell in love with it. When you see a Watchmen cover, you recognize it. You've got this bright, bold type on the side there with an image here that kind of repeats itself in every cover. I love this one, and it has become a very recognizable motif in comic books. Next up, we got the Incredible Hulk, number 379, and this Dale Keown image with that green. I showed that Green Lantern one of my favorite green covers, but this one, it was another one that came to mind when I thought of colors. I love the lighting on this one. That white from the side, the Green Hulk's visage, smiling at the camera there. It's in your face. This is an unforgettable cover. Next up, we got the Uncanny X-Men number 212. And sometimes you don't need the whole color spectrum. This one only uses that orange, blue, brown, that blue highlight there in the trade dress. Love this one, and what a fitting cover for the very first fight between Wolverine and Sabretooth. I love it. Colored perfectly, in my opinion. It's another beautiful Barry Windsor Smith image. Next up, we got Ghost Rider number 16, and I think this is the most underrated, underappreciated colored comic book cover. Love this one by Mark Texeira. Spider-Man there in the background, Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, Hobgoblin, Inner Reflection, those pumpkin bombs coming at the heroes there, the way this one was colored, even the trade dress, the thumbnail there, everything. I loved it. That black and white image of Ghost Rider sets everything off. The excitement that they captured in this one because of the color was so well done. I had to show it there. Next up, we got Identity Crisis number 4. And this Michael Turner cover here captures illumination because of the color, unlike any other. Look at how Wonder Woman's lasso there is providing the light of the image, and it's reflected off of all of the yellow pieces of her costume. Love this one. It sets a mood and a tone of illumination done by that lasso by Michael Turner. Love that. Next up, we got Lady Death number 3. And this was one that I had to show of a small press comic that I thought that they did such a great job on the coloring. Look at how that lightning illuminates everything, and everything's underlit and above, the highlights, the yellow, the purple, it mixes and it works on this one. It's a beautifully colored comic book cover from an independent. Next up, we got Spirits of Vengeance number 6. Now, this is a Kubert image, and I'm not usually a big fan of them, but the way that this one was colored, I love it. Again, it's the illumination that does it for me. That burning skull there with the flames climbing up and yet dripping down there. It's almost like it should be presented upside down. It's fun to see those where part of the image is upside down. You get to see Venom the right way there. And look at how his arm is illuminated by that skull there. I even like that little bit of fluorescent pink in the trade dress. Pink can be a killer for me, but I love it on this one. And that is an underrated, beautifully colored comic book cover. Next up, we got the Eudaimon number 2. Now, I had to show this one as my final example of a small press cover that was colored so well. This artist, Nelson, did this Eudaimon series here, and this evil villain, this white one, you can tell. Something about the color. You can just tell that this is the villain. Look at the backgrounds there, that deep red, that bloody moon there. Oh, I love that. And that blue on the bottom there. Just take this image in. It is one of my favorites, and I think it's truly underappreciated. The way that white skin like glows. Oh, it's a creepy cover. Next up, we got the Uncanny X-Men number 141. And when I was looking for dynamically colored comic book covers, I saw this one and I was just electrified. Look at how that spotlight of color there, that yellow circle there, illuminates them. It puts the attention right on them, and they are in the spotlight. They're in the Sentinel sights now. And look at how the blue that's outside the circle of light just encapsulates everything. If you're not in the spotlight, you're hidden in the shadows there, and you can still make out the image. But when it's blared with that glaring light, it fades out those posters behind them, so you have to kind of squint to look. Deceased, captures, apprehended. Oh, what's going to happen to these X-Men there? But it's the two figures there, how they're lit, captured in that spotlight there. I love this one. It's a classic John Byrne image. Next up, we got Marvel Comics Presents number 16. Now, this one was in the running for my favorite comic cover in Comic Bowl 1, and it's all because of the lighting. That blue teal in the background there, that lightning hitting Colossus in the chest there, his reflective skin, the opportunities for lighting with the Colossus are unlike any other character just because of that chromium skin of his. And look at how he's backlit with the teal on his arm there. I think this is so unappreciated, and this is a wraparound cover. And I'll show the whole image here because it is truly an underappreciated image that is just a beauty unlike any other. I love this one, and I wish they'd make it into a poster. Beautiful Colossus cover, my favorite. Next up, we got Miracle Man number 21, and this is all about Evelyn Cream's sapphire teeth. Look at that, how they're lit there. It's like they're glowing, and if you read this one, it fits his personality. There's something so eerie about those jeweled teeth, that black shadows creeping in on his face there. but he's smiling, showing those blue teeth. Oh, I love this cover. One of my favorite colored comic books. Next up, we got The Incredible Hulk, number 350. Now this, I think, is the most underrated battle between the Hulk and the Thing, and it's got one of the most beautiful covers done by Purvis, and it's all because of the double lighting on this one. Look at how the purple from underneath illuminates their faces, but what gets me is in the trade dress. It's the purple down the sides there. It's dynamic lighting. The lighting from below on Dr. Doom's mask there. This one just captures that image of how lighting should be done in a dynamic, exciting way, and I am so proud to show this one. It just does not get nearly enough attention, and I hope somebody sees this and recognizes it and gets it and loves it half as much as I do, because that is a beautiful comic cover. Next up, we got Wolverine Limited Series number 1. And I had to show my favorite 4-issue limited series that does color that wasn't Barry Windsor Smith. And this one, drawn by Frank Miller, colored so well. That orange background on that number 1 is iconic. This number 2 it's tied for my favorite of the run there, just because I think it doesn't get enough attention. It's always overshadowed by number 1. But look at the lighting from below there. On his hair there, his face, his claws, the bottom of his hands illuminated. Love this one. Not nearly enough attention on number 2. This issue number 3 is known for being the black cover there, and it is amazing. It's the third act. It's when the hero has fallen. He's draped in shadows there. He's down on his luck, but that lighting, again on his hair. Instead of the facing image being lit, it's the top there, and it just captures a mood so well on that one because of the color. Next up, we got issue number 4, and they wrapped it up so well. I mean, they finished on another high note. A yellow into green in the background there, Wolverine, and the illumination coming from his match there, illuminating the side of his face, and again, the flush area of his hair there lit, and the perspective of the crossbow coming at you. It's only complemented by the color, and I love that 4-issue limited series of Wolverine. Next up, we got Silver Surfer number 75, and we're in the home stretch now. This is my all-time favorite gimmick cover with color of reflection. Look at how they put the glaze on this one, and it just captures the whole chromium spectrum there, unlike any other image. I think this is so underrated. I love this one. It's always overshadowed by number 50, but I think this, with that little bit of glaze that just puts all the colors of the rainbow out on display. Love that cover. Next up, we got Doctor Strange number 50, and this one I think is unlike any other. I just think what they chose as the foil on this one, that reflective hologram there, it is like a magic trick. Oh, I love that one. Everything on this one works. And then I just noticed a new detail too. I like how my copy of this comic book was cut a little bit short on this side, meaning you can almost see inside. And it doesn't mean anything to us, but I bet you Doctor Strange is looking into the future there. Maybe that's the spell that he's casting, that he gets a preview of what's ahead. And it's the inside pages of that comic book. I absolutely love this cover. Even the teal in the background there, but the complemented foil there makes that one head and shoulders above any other. Next up, we got X-Men number 95. Now this one, I like the colors on this one so much. It's my penultimate favorite, my second place. And I use this one as my background in my YouTube channel just because that trade dress there, I think, is so amazing. The red, blue in the X-Men with that yellow and green in that title there, the little bit of color in the thumbnails there, complemented by all the bright colors here. Death of Thunderbird, you can't ask for anything more in a comic book cover, and I love the colors on this one. It sums up, to me, how a comic book should be colored. All right, I always save my all-time favorite for last. Any guesses? My favorite colored comic book cover of all time? It's Captain America Annual 8. And I don't think enough good things can be said about this cover. Done by Mike Zeck. It just, Wolverine versus Captain America for the very first time. Wolverine's adamantium claws striking Captain America's shield, and that moment of impact, bam, sparks fly, the illumination on their faces. I love the grizzled look of Wolverine growling, frothing at Captain America there. Even the thumbnail, that black and white image of the book becoming a bird and flying away, it's the rebirth of the idea. This one captures the essence of an exciting, dynamic cover unlike anything else. And to see those two heroes go at it in that moment of impact, I love that more than anything else on a cover. When you get to see that moment that you want, frozen in time, unlike anything else on this one here. And Mike Zeck deserves all the accolades that he receives. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey down comic book covers with great color. Let me know what your favorite colored cover is. Thanks for joining me, and have a great night.